Hello, Freya. Okay, we gonna just have to hold on. See, we thought you how. Okay, so let's try that again. Welcome back to another How to Allow Transformation. Just a heads up, Sarah is definitely, well, we're coming out of survival mode. I was talking to a friend yesterday and I was like, survival is a great mode. I think that a lot of people underappreciate when it comes to this conversation of mental health, because it's like you're literally doing the best you can. And that in itself is a level of above not doing anything at all. It's been 1 month since I've become a dog mom. And if you follow my stories, then you'll know, quick synopsis. I took in my brother's dog. My family has had a lot of transition this year in good ways, as well as myself. And so I literally moved for like a month straight, like little by little. And then I got 2 weeks and I took in my dog. And she's great 87% of the time. And the other is like reactive barking to every dog in the neighborhood, people. And I'm like adjusting because I am generally very sensory sensitive, because like when you work on your mental health, you get very connected with your senses. And yeah, it's been an interesting experience getting to know her getting to know me, us learning each other's patterns. And one of her patterns is every time I like try to do work, she loves to just start whining or barking. And I'm like, you little brat. So that's a little bit about what's going on with me. Like I said, this is a vulnerable conversation about the mental health insides and outs of what do you guys need to really consider when you're working on your mental and emotional development. And today I really, I like to take the trends of what I talk about with people in my sessions and my clients, what they go through, but then also kind of get you hopefully ahead of the game within each cycle of life. And the seasons are a huge correlation when it comes to mental health and wellness, because it's easier to just go with the flow versus resisting all the time, right? And what I'm learning, given being a new dog mom, is that there's some things that I have to adapt to, just like these seasons change that we have no really control over, and we have to adapt to them. So I wanted to go over just probably about 3 things that most people need to start paying attention to, given we're about to hit the beginning of fall. And depending on where you live in a region, some of us are protected by that from a seasons. Like if you live in more of a warm climate all year round, then you're somewhat protected, but not always, because at the end of the day, the sun only comes out for a certain amount of hours a day, and that affects your brain. So let's dive into the first one, which is if you are not already taking a vitamin D3 K2 supplement, go ahead and get on Amazon. I give you permission to do that. You can get them in the stores, but go ahead and do that now. Because here's the thing. When the seasons change and the Earth's natural course of action starts to change, the sun goes out. We all know this. I'm just repeating it for your viewing pleasure, because it really does make a huge impact. Seasonal affective disorder is a very real thing. The problem is that it's very ill prepared for. A lot of people anticipate it being a certain way, and that's kind of like the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to just the light changes. There are a lot of things that we can do to buffer the impact of the sun. And there's also a lot of things that you need to look at from your belief system that also contribute into the lack of preparation or just the severity of that kind of periodic episode that people go through. Okay, here we go. And so one of those is making sure you get your vitamin D levels checked first, but it's pretty safe at this point that taking a vitamin D3 with K2 supplement, and that's specific, just given research is helping, like the K2 is helping absorb the D3, then that is going to help with mood stabilization. It's also going to help with immune health. So given that flu season was dubbed like, in this general area, but it's pretty much all year round at this point, just that one supplement can do a little bit of a big impact. but it's not going to be doing the only thing. You're still needing to look at your belief system. If you have been dealing with a pattern of cyclical mood depression, it's a little bright, mood depression around this time, a seasonal affective disorder, and you also, if you live in a area of the country and or the world that has more extreme falls and winters, then your belief system and your behaviors, this is what really need the attention needs to be paid to. And what I mean by belief system is that it really brings the conversation of pain come through. Most people, and this is going to be a tough one to really embrace, but it is a fact that majority of physical pain is psychologically associated pain. And what I mean by that is when we start to anticipate and experience emotional pain, it literally can create pain signals in the body for your body to actually hurt. So for an example is concept of barometric pressure in the world, right? There is a significant impact that people feel that. But if you're also not doing the work to understand your emotional pain, a lot of that physical pain can exacerbate emotional pain. And around this time of the year, guess what starts to shift? Not only sunlight, but just the natural pressures, even day to day, they shift. But if your body you believe that you feel a lot, therefore your belief system of when you start to feel more down, because of the lack of sun exposure, the lack of routine development, all that stuff, it's going to exacerbate physical pain as well, and vice versa. So when I say belief system about pain, it's really the things that we experience as individuals psychologically and emotionally attached that cause physical pain in the body, and it exacerbates feeling pain. Now, mental health is a lot of things, okay? But it's also preparation, so that's why we're talking about these things, right? But now we have to look at impact. So when you start to anticipate change, and previous changes being worse than like summer changes, right? So we're looking at seasonal affective disorder. If someone's starting to anticipate, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be depressed, I'm gonna do this. You're telling your brain to go ahead and start doing that now and prepare for that. Don't you think that that's going to increase the likelihood that that's going to happen? And if that happens, what are you telling yourself about how to alleviate some of those symptoms? Like getting your vitamin D levels checked, by taking a supplement, by remembering to actually stretch your body so you release some of that emotional absorption of that the tension and the pressure that we all have experiencing these days. So when we look at the belief system, we have to look a little bit further out too, as to what do you stop doing because you're anticipating it having to stop within a month. And so typically a lot of my clients start to look like they start watching more Netflix because it's getting darker earlier, little by little. We're not quite there yet, which is why I'm talking about it now. So hopefully by the time that this video circulates, you're going to have some trial and error to start getting changes into a new routine, but you should be adapting your summer routines of like, if you're getting outside more, trying to shift that up in your day versus not doing it at all, because it's typically associated with the structure of how you organize your day. And you probably just got that somewhat organized even before summer is already over, okay? But summer's not over. We're looking at maybe start getting used to moving your time block of sun exposure during the middle of the day. So not only you can get your vitamin D absorption from the sun, and it's not just all coming in through supplement, because supplement also is conditioning not only that your body can absorb it, that you actually are eating and causing a stress-free environment for your body to actually absorb the supplement, which is one of the biggest problems and foreshadowing to the next thing. But if you're anticipating change, and then the other part that's going to kind of go to the second part is if you're anticipating the cold. I understand. I grew up in the Northeast, shoveled snow as part of my chores when I was, I don't really enjoy those bone-chilling winter cold winters, but I can't argue with the fact that they're actually kind of good for the body and for the brain. The problem is a lot of people really operate under this degree and definition of stay in your comfort zone. And that in itself contributes to that seasonal affective disorder, because you're now, the first thing is you're anticipating change, so therefore you're reducing the amount of action that you take to prepare yourself for change. And then when the change actually happens, we start to avert away from going outside at a certain time because it's cold, because the sun's not up. And the reason I'm talking about this is I've already started thinking about it and noticing that I'm hitting snooze an extra time. And what I mean, so I've had a lot of change given just in the past couple of months, but for the last 2 days here in North Carolina, we've had I wake up and it's 55 degrees outside. My air conditioning is not on. My fan blowing is actually making me cold. And I put that cover right up over my shoulder and I go right back to sleep. And it feels good. And I am, some days I'm resting, but some days I'm also not adhering to the plan that actually I know I've set ahead of myself that makes me feel more grounded. Okay. So when we start to look at your relationship with the cold, I want you guys to start thinking about it now before it's excessively cold. I've started thinking about, okay, I got to walk this dog twice a day. And I'm also still figuring out how I manage my gym schedule with walking a dog. And we're figuring it out, but it's definitely lessened from 4 to 5 days a week at the gym to 2 to 3 days for now. And I'm having to figure out, okay, when I go outside and walk this dog, it's probably going to be dark, which thank goodness she's a protective dog. So I don't really have to worry about that part. But I have to worry about the fact I have chronic bronchitis. I don't run outdoors, so I also don't run in general. But I definitely don't run outdoors a lot of times because my lungs are very sensitive to the cold. And then if I breathe too hard, I trigger myself an episode of bronchitis. And that's an unnecessary issue that I really want to deal with. So I've already started thinking about, okay, how am I going to mitigate this impact when I have to walk this dog for my own sanity? Because she is going to be up in cahoots and be all up in my space and barking all the time, right? And that's going to be even more of a mental and emotional health impact. So how do I mitigate that with a little bit of trial and error space before it actually starts happening? So I'm looking at, I got to find my scarves. I'm not going to buy a whole bunch of stuff because that's just my philosophy. The answer is not buying things all the time. But I'm looking at, okay, well, maybe I need to get used to a couple of days where I walk her first, because at night, in the dark, in the morning, she's not going to be as interested. All the dogs are not out there barking, saying hello to each other, right? And then going to the gym afterwards, which is a huge routine shift for me. Okay. So when you start looking at your relationship with the cold, if you just don't like it, then you're going to have to grow a little bit of tolerance to it, because that is ultimately what puts and contributes to the overall seasonal affective disorder, but then also just general mental health and patterns. You might still become depressed. That's fine. Honestly, depression is your body's natural way of slowing you down because you've been doing the most, probably. But those periods are where you need to start looking at okay, when I come out of this, how am I going to not make the same mistakes again? And this is not just, bigger goals and failures. This is learning your own patterns that are based off of the seasonal patterns that ultimately sometimes you just can't change. Unfortunately, you cannot change the sun not being out a certain amount of time. But if you, I have heard, what are they called? Not UV lights. And tanning is not necessarily the right amount of it's not an amount. It's not the right UV rays that helps register your brain circadian rhythm, which is really what we're looking at with light. You want as much of a natural UV light, and they do have specific lights that you can buy. I would really only recommend that you buy those if you're in a place where you have excessive cold, where you cannot sit outside for 5 to 10 minutes or maybe 15 minutes. Even with a blanket, you really just need your eyes and your face a lot of the times to absorb that. But the lights are available, the supplement we did talk about, but it's really starting to build your tolerance to these things. And a lot of them are routine based, and most people aren't being honestly, they're prepared enough. They may know that pattern, but are you prepared to put those things in place? Because maybe you're still hitting snooze to the point where you're not even getting up to meet your own expectation of what you set your intention for. So first two, get your vitamin D levels checked. So before this happens, supplement, and then also your relationship with cold and working on you building tolerance back to that cold, right? And my third, I could make plenty of points, but I'm gonna keep it capped at 3, okay? My third point here is understanding that sleep and rest are 2 different things. This has been a actually significant topic over the last few months, given the increase in emotional stress and the exposure that we've had to all of the turmoil going on in our society, just the vibration that we all do, or whether or not it is just the transition from your kids being in summer to going back to school. When your brain is telling you, yo, I need a nap, I need sleep, it doesn't always mean that you need sleep, but it may mean that you need rest. And so I'm going to keep posting it, and I'll probably post it in the comments of this particular live, is that there are 7 different types of rest. And I would encourage you to try practicing the other forms of rest before you just jump to sleep or physical rest as your only solution for like a midday break. One of the biggest issues is for people when it comes to sleep hygiene is that they end up being so exhausted because, one, they have not eaten enough for the day and it's eating healthy would be great, but if you're not eating anything at all, your body is not going to have fuel for you to cognitively be able to manage without feeling tired. And all fatigue is telling you is take rest. That does not mean go to bed and sleep for 2 hours, because again, let's look a little bit further out. Now you have responsibilities to, in the evening, and you end up staying up too late, and then your morning is now jacked up because your body is like, oh, we got rest, we got sleep, we're ready to go. And it thinks your brain cannot actually determine how many hours of sleep you get. It's going off of the quality of sleep. And if you're getting a 2-hour power nap in the middle of the day, it's going to make you think that you have another 4 to 6 hours of momentum. Now, if you need those 4 to 6 hours because you're exerting more energy, like you're doing a workout routine, all that, it can be balanced in that regard. But a lot of people aren't. And then we have an issue. And when I say we have an issue, it tends to be a discussion in my sessions a lot as to how the evening routine now gets thrown for a loop and completely off track because you took a 2-hour to 3-hour nap in the middle of the day and you couldn't actually engage in sleep at night, and then you get on a screen or you read for too long. And as much as reading is a great coping skill, it is also escaping the fact that you're actually using more mental energy than your body can keep up with accounting for. So that, yes. So hopefully that made sense. So really it's a matter of practicing. So we've got like mental rest, which is one of my biggest suggestions I tell people, especially if you work in a corporate setting, especially if you work on a screen, take 2 to 5 minute breaks every hour. Walk away from the computer, walk away from your cell phone, walk away, and preferably outside. And this can also kind of help you build your tolerance to the cold, even though by the midday in North Carolina, we're still hitting in the 70s. But is that if you get out and you start teaching your brain like, okay, I'm going to take these breaks, you will start to feel within a few days less fatigued because you're not staring at that screen so 2 to 3 minutes, 5 times a week. That is 15 minutes a week for you to be less exposed to screens, as well as setting your brain up for the next week as to it's not going to crave a screen as much. It's like, oh, well, we didn't get as much, so we don't need as much. All your brain is operating off of is reward and pain. So in both of those we've talked about already is knowing emotional pain is going to exacerbate physical pain and vice versa. But then also being prepared enough to train your limit. We can all sit here and stare at a screen for 3 to 4 hours and get in that hyper focus. It doesn't mean that we should. That is the one thing. There's a lot of things, Y'all, to tell you, my brain is a huge responsibility, and I have to be careful when I talk to people because it's like, oh, it's not good enough. It is absolutely good enough, but there are a lot of things that our brain needs to be able to build trust within ourselves for it to function the way that it's supposed to, which is protect us, to be calm, and not have this alarm system internally that we have to constantly listen to, and then your body will release weight, it will release inflammation. It will reduce the amount of chronic illness long term by just giving yourself breaks. Just from a screen. You're not going to, half the time we're taking those breaks on social media, and that's just where the issue comes and lies. But those 2 to 3 minutes can really set the tone for how you start to regulate, and your emotions are not going to be as hefty. Now, you still do have to learn maybe some, needs clarification from what your emotions are telling you. But in terms of fatigue, you're not going to experience as much pain because you've taken breaks where you've experienced like that, just that moment. Nature is the only thing that in our bodies, or the only thing that really exists in the moment. So if you can connect with that for 2 to 3 minutes at a time, then more than likely your brain fog, your honestly, a lot of indigestion will clear up from that, because you're just also reducing the inflammation in your gut because you are regulating your cortisol by just naturally taking a break. So rest. So that's mental rest. Emotional rest is a little tricky to do by yourself if you don't have that much training or accountability. And what I mean by that is if emotions are what make us go. So if you're experiencing big emotions and you're not quite able to regulate yourself enough to process and understand how you're moving that energy out of you, especially if it's associated with some kind of like grief, or life stress event, then they're going to backpile. But what I would recommend for emotional rest would be journaling. And it's so not my favorite recommendation, but I cannot argue with the fact that all you're doing when I say journaling, could you type it out on your phone? Absolutely. But this is a lot less movement than this. And what that does to the brain, one, is it slowing down, because we all know this gets a paragraph done in like 30 seconds, whereas this is natural regulation for your emotions. You're also building trust with yourself and your thoughts. So there's a thought boundary. I'm trying to be efficient here for y'all, is that you're telling your brain, okay, this is what I need to really connect with. And when we talk about journaling, I don't mean go deep dive and be all spiritual and reflective and philosophic and theoretical. No, just saying, okay, I'm taking a break. This shit better work. Sara said it would work. I don't care what you say, but you need to get your thoughts out of your head. And that in itself will help emotional rest as well as mental rest, because those thoughts can be circulating. And even if you're writing out a to-do list, that's fine. At least it's one less thing that your brain has to hold in capacity, one less tab to be open, and one less thing to get distracted by and forget to do, and then criticize yourself. You know what? Just for some giggles, I'm going to throw this one here as number 4. Practice self-compassion with everything you do. Everything. You can have a critical response. This has been popping up a lot today this week, between body dysmorphia and making mistakes, is that people are paying, my clients anyway, are paying attention to their negative self-talk. Your negative self-talk is going to be there. All you need to do is be able to look at it and be like, okay, how can I make this more a compassionate statement about how I set myself up and reduce the amount of mistake as well as self-criticism that is needed? Because criticism is not always constructive. It's really just crazy. It sounds crazy. You would not call yourself the things that you call yourself inside your head, but because you're not writing it down and you're not actually seeing it, you're just listening to it. Okay? So that's emotional, mental rest, spiritual rest. Now, for a lot of my clients, I deal with pretty complex cases, whether that be ADHD, complex PTSD, BPD, MDD, BPD, all the acronyms, right? So self-narrative is a huge thing I push on, but spiritual rest can be a little bit more challenging. They're kind of challenged, but take them as a challenge. Just see if you can put these things in your day to help you practice the seasonal changes that we're going through, right? But the spiritual rest is typically like meditation. But I'm just gonna recommend mindfulness. And what mindfulness really is all about is a matter of being able to experience your present moment without judgment and or redirection. It's really being able to just kind of, observe the moment, notice the reaction in your body, but not let the reaction move you out of that moment, right? So when we talk about mindfulness, you can do this in a lot of ways. Box breathing is a good one. Body scans are another one. You can Google all of these, or you know what? I'm supposed to be doing more self-promo here. You can go either to my website, but I would recommend the app. So I have an app where I have my whole resource library is there for y'all for free. You can go to the app and you can look under the mindfulness tab. So box breathing, body scan, or you can just Google it. Doing a guided meditation is a form of spiritual rest as well, but I would just say, like, keep in mind that meditation is a practice that requires a lot of consistent focus, but it is good. I love the basics because honestly, I don't always want to be on my phone. So doing a guided meditation and then I get distracted by the right voice, the sensory experience. So I stick with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. And that for my brain, because this thing goes really fast. Y'all think I'm this cool, calm, collected on the outside? She's like, oh my gosh, she's like confident in modeling. Do you know how much work, the transformation that y'all have seen has been me trying to slow this thing down, letting it go fast, and then having to slow it down and regulate it? Because it's very difficult to be someone who struggles with, mental health and understand emotions as well as understand behaviors and not become dependent on the things that feel good in life. Okay. So spiritual rest, and I will post this in the comments about the different examples, but I would encourage mindfulness over meditation, especially if you are someone that deals with depression, anxiety, ADHD, definitely eating, because y'all know I have a course on it's the relationship with food, but it's really about the relationship with yourself. And food is just the context that I prioritize as the main nourishment, because more than likely it's well, you guys heard me, but I'm gonna say it again. It is the one behavior that we cannot live without, that is not innate to, like, our body will not just do it for us. Well, actually, in a way, it will. Your body will eat your tissues. Autoimmune disorders is an example of that. It will implode on itself if you do not bring it rest and nourishment. And so Why Fresh Perspective, which is my course and my coaching program, is focused on the relationship with food, because if it's not disordered eating or an eating disorder, it is a disorder of perception in your anxiety and your comparison, perfectionism. We're all plagued and exposed to the expectations of what we're supposed to look like and how thin or what we're supposed to present in order to get a partner. And as much as I know that my arguments for people are never going to be, I never want anyone to do it like me, but how you allow yourself to be codependent on things in life is really going to be your impact in the world. You could be in a good mental health place, but you're not practicing a kind of emotional regulation from a physical standpoint, like muscle resilience, or muscle resistance training, then your hormones are going to be out of whack. They just are. Your muscles are the things that regulate your hormones. It took me a long time, even as an athlete, but as a bigger athlete, because I believed my pain. I believed I was just supposed to be the big girl. I believed I was just supposed to be this way. I've been smaller, but I had less muscle mass. And when I wasn't nourishing my body, I wasn't nourishing my brain. I could not build the capacity to be out here modeling. For whoever is going to watch this, here's a spoiler alert, because I have not announced this. I was asked to be in my first fashion week. I didn't even have to cast. I was so surprised. And in order for me to do all this traveling, for me to be able to manage my business, for me to be able to show up to Fashion Week, I have had to slow down, and I've had to nourish not only my body, but my belief system about how much rest I need. Not sleep and rest, but mostly rest. And it's up here and not necessarily just with my body. And if your relationship with food is jacked, well, I'm sorry, your dating life's going to be jacked. And then I'm never going to blame anyone for trying, to make their dating life or their partnership to a certain extent. What am I trying to say? I'm not going to blame anyone for that, but I am going to tell you that you're missing what's right in front of you, that if your life as an individual is not to some degree has a strong foundation, your relationships won't. Your relationship with yourself and your consistency, not only just emotionally doing development work, but physically training for something that doesn't happen yet, right? And walking is even training. If you can get yourself walking 2 times a day, you're naturally building muscle, especially where you walk in the resistance, but you will not be able to build capacity. You will not be able, I see people make money all the time, and then I see them lose it because there's no strong foundation to how do you maintain and sustain health in the overall sense of wellness. So 45 minutes used to be my cutoff. 30 minutes is my cutoff now. So I said the 3 points, but let's review them real quick. We have supplement, vitamin D, get your levels checked. Go ahead and do it now while your kids are transitioning. Oh man, I had a really good point about kids I did not include. And I'll just sum it up like this. They're dependent on you, providers. If your routine is jacked, their routine is jacked. If they're eating sugar first thing in the morning, you're going to be eating sugar first thing in the morning, and you're going to be hungry and distracted. Anyways, get your vitamin D levels checked and try to reduce the amount of sugar in your life. I'll just fit that one in there. I did not say that in the original. The second one is looking at your belief system and your relationship with the cold. Build your tolerance little by little now, so your brain is not so shocked and then just tries to hijack you and keep you inside the whole winter, because you're going to see an increase of substance use. You're going to see an increase of weight gain. It's the one pattern that we all hate, but for some reason we just don't want to pay attention to it. So let's pay attention to it so you don't have to get to the third point, which was, you want to remember what my third point was? I didn't write it down. I didn't follow my instructions. It's taken a long time to get to the point where I could even get to 2 points. The third one, I don't remember, y'all. It's out there. You're gonna just have to roll it back. It's probably something about building capacity, because there's a lot of great things that we can do in our lives, and I believe in each and every one of y'all. But you got to take rest. That's right. There it is. See, it came back. Sleep versus rest, and finding a balance for the other types of rest versus just going to sleep. Please do not believe your brain all the time. Listen to it and then learn to trust it after you've disproven some of the things that it tells you to do and tells you to feel. But sleeping in the middle of the day, power naps, I'm not going to touch that. Sleeping for more than 45 minutes, you're already out of your capacity right there, and you're throwing that off. But rest, taking breaks, writing your thoughts out, all those things train your brain to, seasonal affective disorder. What? I'm going to be outside this winter. Definitely this fall. But all right, that's what I got for y'all. I really hope everyone's transitioned back, because I know it's a lot of different schools transition back. This is a time where you're going to feel more exhausted, but stick to the routine, stick to the plan. And if you need any help making the plan or you need any accountability, hit me up. You can download the app, or you can hit me up through my website. Let me put that up there. Pretty simple. Just Google me. Sara, no H. And I've got free resources in the app, on my website. I have a blog going, which I've not posted to in a while. And then, honestly, if you just watch my stories, I try to post my daily movement. If you tag me, you can get some free accountability. Do your best. And that's the rest. So y'all have a great day. And I will see you hopefully next week. I'm going to be taking a couple of breaks here and there because I've got some other projects that I'm bringing to the forefront. And got some modeling things to announce soon. But you guys have a great fall.